Hey everyone, this is the Wrong Podcast. I'm Led. This is Colton. Joe. So yeah, Colton is hosting.
Hey everybody.
Yeah, take it away.
All right, guys. So we're going to be talking about a couple different things today, but as a traditional the Wrong Podcast fashion, we're going to be talking about what we're all playing, what we're all doing right now. I know, Led, you and me, we've actually recently been playing the Division Open Beta. Joe, you downloaded it, but you haven't played it yet, right?
Yeah, my work schedule probably won't let me play it.
How long did you play last night?
I gave it about an hour.
Okay. What'd you think within your hour?
I think I might have told you this, but it's almost a better Ghost Recon game than Ghost Recon.
Yeah.
It was, especially Advanced Warfighter, which was which was okay, I guess. But I do like what seems like the Destiny-ish shooter RPG sort of. But it's not too hard in that direction. Because there's a reason I don't play Destiny, because it doesn't really appeal to me.
Is it third person or first person?
Third person.
Okay.
Yeah.
The graphics
they're outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, it's been in production long enough. It better be.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, there's like really small little details that just really make the game for me. Like I was standing, so it's an open world game, so you can see other people depending on the area that you're in, whether it's people. Whether it's a sociable area or a combat area. But at one point, my character was just standing still, and snow started to accumulate on top of him.
Oh, wow.
But then when I moved around, the snow eventually went away. Like, it's little details like that that are so small that, like, you as a developer, a game developer, Joe, you would really appreciate stuff like that. But me as a player, I find that stuff really, really fascinating. So, no, I've put about 6 hours into it.
Wow.
So it's definitely immersed you then.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I got done playing it on Thursday, I was playing with my friend Chris, who's like he's been the one that's been like really talking up this game to me. Shout out to Chris who listens. You're the man. He's going to love it.
Please comment.
Yeah, please comment. Yeah, can you comment on a video? Stop. Don't just lurk around the YouTubes.
So we need friends alone.
Yeah. I instantly pre-ordered the game. Like, I'd gotten paid, and I was like, here's my $60 Xbox. I want your game right now.
Oh, you bought it?
Oh, yeah, I bought it. I straight up threw the money into it, and I'm really excited. This game comes out in just a couple weeks.
Hey, Joe, you want to go halvesies on it?
You could be a good friend and let me put your Xbox as my home.
Hey,
Xbox.
we're gonna move on. Joe, what are you up to right now?
So I took advantage of the recent Steam sale and I bought a game called City Skylines, which I'm kind of late to the party for. That's been out for over a year.
Year, right?
Yeah, it's about a year, but it's what like SimCity should have been. It's very addictive.
Oh, that's right. SimCity was the one that had all the issues at launch. This one didn't, though, right?
Yeah, I think it's made by a European company. What's cool about it is they actually have like a real working traffic system. So depending how you develop your roads and ultimately your city and your laid out your districts and all that, it makes a big impact on how you make money, how your city functions, and that's
really cool.
I've dropped I got it last week, so I think I'm at about 9 hours in it, which for me is a lot.
That's a lot, for you. Yeah, that's awesome. Led, how about you? What do you, other than Division, which we just talked about?
Yeah. Actually, I've been playing Elite Dangerous.
Right. Yeah. You and me were talking about that. I'm gonna probably end up buying it soon.
I'm trying to get Joe to buy it, man.
Are we doing PC or are we doing Xbox?
I don't know yet. So the PC version is cheaper.
It's much cheaper. Yeah.
But what I could do, Joe. I have access to a $10 Xbox gift card, so that brings it down to $25.
Who'd you have to kill to get this?
Don't you worry
Bill
about
Gates.
that. No more questions.
Bill Gates is dead.
But
worth it.
But yeah, dude, it's so freaking cool.
It's like a space sim in a way. Right?
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, you can look around your cockpit, you can retract landing gear, you can change the interface brightness in the cockpit, you can send messages, you can request permission to dock. Apparently, it's like a 1-to-1 scale of the Milky Way.
Right.
So,
wow, that's really big.
Like, if you don't go into hyperdrive, you could literally be driving somewhere for like years.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
pretty sweet. There's space battles.
So you drive in space, or do you fly in space?
Sorry. You fly in space.
From the space highway.
The whole point is that, it's very long distances simulated in an interesting way.
Is it filled with enough content, though, or is it just like, here's another boring solar system?
That's the only complaint I've heard about the game when I was looking into it, is that, when there's stuff to do, it's really interesting, but the content is sparse, that you're going to spend a lot of time by yourself flying around as opposed to actually doing things.
Oh, okay.
That's the only concern I've really heard.
I don't know, because I'm still kind of in the baby stages. I'm still learning how to travel correctly, not slam into a planet. I'm still learning how to dock. Okay. So, like, a lot of the spaceports spin.
Right, it's like the that's how they do like the gravity within
them Interstellar.
Or something. Yeah, exactly.
That's
where it's like the big
you
circle
have to like
and stuff
line
like
up your ship and start spinning it, and then you can go.
Okay,
you can also self-destruct. Because
every spaceship always has a self-destruct
button.
Doesn't
it?
Yeah.
All right. So those mostly games, but we're gonna move on to another game topic that we're all pretty interested in. Is that GameStop recently announced that the PlayStation VR, which is codename Morpheus.
Yeah.
No, it was.
It was.
It's now PlayStation VR.
So that's the official name of it, is PlayStation VR.
Yeah,
okay. They don't have any like crazy name or anything like that. All right.
No.
That will be available this fall. So I know that we've talked about VR quite a bit on this show, actually, and I know some of us even have some first-hand experience. Actually, all of us have first experience with actually using VR systems. So, what is our ideas about now bringing that to a home console? Like, what are our thoughts on VR coming to maybe a more commercially available, as opposed to something like some of the other big ones like the HTC headset or Oculus, which are hundreds and hundreds of dollars and even require new PCs to run this content.
Yeah, so I love the idea that it could be coming to consoles and make it more open to the average consumer.
Right.
But I'm hesitant because, they did announce that the Oculus Rift, it does require a beefy machine.
Yeah.
You need to drop about $1,500 in the
just
computer.
to get it to work.
Yeah. And with the PlayStation 4, that comes nowhere near close to the hardware that the Oculus Rift needs. Now, one of the things that I was reading up on the Oculus Rift, because when I first saw that, I'm like, you need all of this just to run this VR headset well, is it VR, at least for the Oculus, it runs at 90 frames per second. And the reason they do that is to prevent motion sickness.
Right.
There's no way the PlayStation 4 will be able to run that at 90 frames per second.
And there's the concern, too, to make something more commercially available, they're going to have to dumb down the technology within it, which may not give us the same immersion experience that you could get with the Oculus on the PC. So do you feel that they're like cutting corners just to make it available for consoles?
I hope they don't, because I almost feel like if they deliver a below par experience.
Sure.
Subpar?
Subpar, thank you.
Yeah, below par. Yeah.
Subpar. the average consumer, I think, if they're going to say, hey, I just dropped, I think they're expecting that it's going to be like $500.
Wow.
If they drop that kind of money and it's not that good, they're never going to want to buy a VR again.
Yeah, I wouldn't at that point. I mean, you're right. I mean, especially with something like this, it's such new and hot technology that there's always that company that tries to rush it out of production first. Do you feel PlayStation's maybe making this mistake?
I almost kind of want to wait for another generation of consoles before they get into VR.
Sure.
Or the only way I could see it working is if it is like $500. That VR hardware is all self-sustained and it only uses PlayStation.
I do happen to. So apparently, the PlayStation VR, it's the headset and there's another box thing it comes with.
Okay.
So that box assists with.
Okay, so it's like all the extra components that actually process it. That like it's kind of like a power aspect where like the headset plugs into this and then that plugs into the console.
Now the concern there is, okay, the Oculus Rift is $600, $599.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How much is a PlayStation VR going to cost in addition to the cost of a PS4?
Speculation is $500.
If it's $500 and then I got to go spend $400 on it, you know what I mean? I might as well just get an Oculus Rift.
This reminds me a lot of when PlayStation came out. I don't know if you guys remember those PlayStation TVs that they had a few years ago.
Never.
You remember that? Yeah. So I was working at Best Buy at the time, and they came out these little 32-inch TVs that had 3D built into the television, and it was a PlayStation-made Sony TV. and you could buy the TV and the PlayStation. It was like a bundled thing. And this is when like 3D was like super popular for that like week that it was really popular. Where, you know, and PlayStation was really great because it was the first home console that supported 3D gaming and 3D Blu-ray, because the PlayStation 3 was a Blu-ray player. So they made a TV that allowed you to do 3D gaming and 3D moving on top of it. That TV didn't sell at all.
Which is sad, because that TV
was awesome.
If you, like, let's say you had two people on the same couch,
yeah,
it allowed two people to play two different games, or like have two different
Didn't
screens.
You need to wear like
it was the different point of view. So like if you were playing like a racing game and I was sitting to the left, it didn't have to do split screen. The left person would see player 2 and the right person would see player 1.
You had to have goggles on, though.
You had to have glasses, of course. Yeah, I remember that. That was the coolest selling feature of it. The issue with it is no studio supported it. Like the game wise, like there was one racing game that I remember and one adventure game, and that was pretty much it. And then the TV just kind of went away, which was a shame because it was a really clever idea. But the TV itself cost more than a PlayStation did, and that was the hard sell. So you're right. I don't own a PlayStation. I really want to get one, but if I'm going to buy a $400 PlayStation and then a $500 VR system, at that point I might as well just get a PC with an Oculus.
Yeah.
Or upgrade my existing PC.
And in addition to that, if you go the Oculus route...
More content,
but Microsoft is starting to kind of align themselves with Oculus.
Right.
Well, they have the HoloLens, though.
So, yeah, but that seems like it's kind of a different...
Yeah.
It's kind of a different thing. So, the possibility here is that for a upcoming generation of consoles, then there would be Oculus support, and then you'd be golden. So
I know you guys are a little bit more interested in VR than I am, and I do find the technology to be really interesting, but I'm kind of with you on this, Joe, that maybe this initial version of everything isn't where I'm going to jump onto it. I think I'm going to wait for the PlayStation VR version 2 or the Oculus version 2 or 3, you know, when they can maybe make things a little bit cheaper but still keep up the quality. And then at that point, technology and, you know, more content will be out there too. Going back to 3D, I think one of the biggest falls of it is just, you know, not a lot of stuff was being made in 3D at the time. So if you were someone that jumped on the 3D movie, like the home movie bandwagon really early, there was nothing. There was a demo disc of underwater scuba diving and Avatar. Avatar is a great movie, don't get me wrong, but I can only watch it.
So
I'm not gonna buy a $4,000 television to watch Avatar over and over again. So with something like this, you know, right now I'm not seeing any games that are actually that are being sold right now with that technology. It's all demos and productions and previews and this, that, and another thing.
Whoa! You got to go on Steam.
Yeah, Steam does.
And I know that I know Steam has quite a bit, but this is all like. The technology isn't even commercially available yet right now.
Right. See, that's all meant for the Oculus Rift DK2.
Exactly.
Which sucks for anybody who has anything other than a DK2.
Exactly my point.
Like
it's a narrow margin of a narrow margin of a narrow margin of people that fit into that category right now. If I wanted to get involved in this, I'd have to buy an entirely new entirely new PC, buy this, and play what's on Steam right now. If I wanted to get involved into it right now. But if I waited a year, more content, better technology, more options.
Sure. And you'd possibly be able to find a Rift, you know, on eBay used for $500 instead of $600.
Exactly. So
right now, DK2s are doing about $550.
They've jumped up in price a lot. They were they're being sold for $300 from the source when they came out.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Do you think?
I guess they wanted developers to get their hands on it. That's the only thing I can think of.
No, I'm telling. That's not what it is. I'm telling you, it's consumers.
No, Joe, you're wrong. Yeah. You're so wrong.
I know because I've been tracking this for the last couple, like 4 or 5 weeks because I want one.
Yeah.
But it's just people like myself, sort of, who don't want to wait for.
Well, they've stopped making them, too, so the demand for them has shot up while the supply for them has stopped. So, of course it's going to go up.
The problem is I don't necessarily want it for games. As I said, I still want it for the web development. So now I'm competing with a bunch of guys who just want to play Project Cars in VR.
Well, that sounds
which is still equally fun.
Really fun. Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
But I am excited with PlayStation VR. Ace Combat 7 is coming out for VR.
Fighter games and racing games, I think, are what will give you your most bang for your buck right now. For
those, but I'm also really excited for more out-of-the-box type games. I think they just announced that Adrift is going to be coming out. They put a release date for it. And it's going to be for the Oculus. So it's like a space exploration game where it's like the movie Gravity, basically, where you're in a space station where stuff goes bad, but you're now floating around in space in a VR headset. Like, how amazing does that sound? It's a very unique experience.
Anything with space with VR, I think, is great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so VR is definitely coming out. I guess the big question to kind of wrap up this topic is, none of us own a PlayStation 4.
Not yet.
Not yet. I plan to buy one coming up soon. I think
I would like to. Yeah. I don't want to pay for 2 separate online subscriptions.
Yeah. My big question is if and when we all get PlayStations, are we going to buy the VR headset for the PlayStation when it comes out?
I'm going to wait to see what the ratings are on it.
Yeah.
What games, and if it if it makes you motion sick because the technology is not there for it, I'm not going to get it.
I'm getting an Oculus ASAP. The PlayStation VR. Joe, you have the right idea.
I would wait as well, at least second generation or something like that. All right, so we're going to move on to our next topic, which we've mentioned, and we've actually done a non-spoiler and a spoiler review of the movie Deadpool, but we wanted to expand on that a little bit more, that Hollywood is now kind of taking notice of an R-rated superhero movie. So are we concerned that Hollywood's future trends are going to be kind of following in Deadpool's footsteps? Are they going to start making all these R-rated movies because Deadpool was so popular? And is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I know one of the things that I saw was that they're considering making the next and final Wolverine movie an R-rated movie as well.
I think they officially announced that it is. Within a week of Deadpool's opening weekend, they said
I don't know
Wolverine
if it's official. I think they're teasing it, but I don't know if it's like 100% official yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't go that route anyways. And Wolverine should be an R-rated movie regardless. They should make an R-rated Wolverine movie. That sounds amazing.
Hang on, though. An R rating does not a good movie make.
It's
still got to be good,
right? And that's why we're talking about.
That's where concern is.
Is exactly the concern. Should we be concerned that Hollywood is going to take this one movie and its popularity and go crazy with it? Joe, I know you have a lot to say.
Yeah, I think that Hollywood execs more often than not make the wrong decisions when it comes to what they think that moviegoers want to see. If anything, they look at, like, hey, what made this movie popular? They look, Deadpool was R-rated. Instead of looking at it's like a unique story, they're going to look at things like that, what trends.
They don't look at the writing or the acting or the production. They're just like, oh, this is the one aspect that made it popular. Let's run with it.
Mm-hmm. Now people want gory, bloody, and, jokes off the wall movies, and that's, I kind of feel like the way... With the success of Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel like Ant-Man was just a bite off of that movie as far as let's take those same trends, let's put some pop songs in there, let's try to put some witty humor in, and I just think it was kind of fly. I know you like Ant-Man a little more than
I'm going to disagree with that because of other reasons, but we'll talk about that later. Ant-Man was in production before Guardians. Ant-Man was actually supposed to come out like years prior. Plus it was also written by Edgar Wright, the guy that wrote like Shaun of the Dead and stuff like that. So the humor came from him, and Adam McKay, who made like Step Brothers.
I think what makes a successful movie that a lot of Hollywood overlooks is if you treat your audience like you're not stupid.
I agree 100% with that, yeah. I think movies need to consider that we are a lot smarter as consumers than we used to be. I mean, if you look at like 90s movies, they just spoon-fed you details back then. Nowadays, I think moviegoers are a lot more sophisticated, and I think... What?
No, here comes the airplane of plot.
No, it's so accurate though.
Yeah, no, it is.
So accurate.
I think movies like Chris Nolan movies especially are such smart movies, and they're very, very clever. Inception, Prestige is one of my all-time favorite Christopher Nolan movies. Memento, and these are great storytelling movies that he doesn't treat us like we're children. He treats us like we're intelligent adults, and he gives us the movie that we deserve, not that the city needs right now.
Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, I felt like I was being baby talked to.
Yeah, there's so much exposition.
This is the action you like, right? Bam, boom. Oh, look, there's some boobs too. Bam, boom.
Yeah. So I mean, we all really like Deadpool. It's a really great movie. They're making another one of that, but I mean, are we all concerned that Hollywood is going to go down this trend? The one point that I really want to bring up that a friend of mine actually pointed out to me that I almost entirely forgot was this is not the first R-rated superhero movie we've ever gotten.
You have The Watchmen and you have Blade.
We have Watchmen, we have Blade. The Punisher, the Thomas Jane Punisher movie is also R-rated. Yeah, so there have been R-rated superhero movies. This is probably the highest profile superhero movie. Movies like Sin City is a comic book movie, and that was R-rated. Or Dredd, not Judge Dredd with Stallone, but Dredd with Carl Urban from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
That was R-rated as well. But granted, those are smaller name comic book franchises comparatively to Deadpool. Deadpool's easily the highest profile name to be an R-rated superhero. Well, he's the only real superhero name. The other ones were just comic book movies.
The problem is
Blade is maybe the only.
Every Comic-Con, there's always somebody as Deadpool.
Dude,
somebody.
Photobombing
everyone.
Everybody's Comic-Con pictures.
Have I not shown you how many Deadpools I saw at Comic-Con? They were everywhere. It was
not
awesome.
unique.
Yeah. So that is the concern, is that will other movies start coming out just for the sake of making an R-rated movie?
Yeah.
Thank you for your input.
It's gonna happen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want it to happen.
No.
But I think a lot of times, especially with movie studios where you have groupthink happening,
right?
The tendency is to look at the stats and say, let's just do it. I don't care.
Fox didn't even want Deadpool to happen. I think Ryan Reynolds tried for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they finally gave him a budget for it. It was only $50 million.
It's a very small budget.
Yeah, they had to cut out like $7 or $8 million at the last minute.
Yeah. I think I saw an interview from Tim Miller, the director, and he's like, at one point we had like a 96-page script, but we had to cut it down to like a fraction of that because they wanted to do so much, but obviously their budget restrained them from doing certain things.
Well, next movie...
Yeah, no holds barred. Well, he also did say that he doesn't want a bigger budget for the next movie either. He's like, I like the budget we have because it keeps us focused on the story, on what we have to do.
Oh, instead of putting in gratuitous
explosions.
I mean, sequels always have a really bad track record of usually making more money, but usually being shittier, i.e. Transformers, Rise of the Fallen.
Mummy Returns,
Blade 2.
Whoa. Whoa. No, Blade 3 was worse. Blade 2 was excellent.
Blade 2 was okay. I like Reloaded. I like Reloaded better than Revolutions.
Revolutions wasn't that great, but Reloaded was excellent.
I mean, it's a very complicated movie, so there's only so much Keanu Reeves in a train station that I can take, though.
They kind of wrote themselves into a wall.
Every wall. Into a literal box of walls.
So I think that's a big problem they do when they make sequels of movies. When they're thinking of success, they don't keep expanding on new things. The new things that they come up with is like, all right, well, let's just give them more of what already is.
Yeah, more violence, more visuals, more this, more that.
It's like, well, what was unique about the first one, and then taking that and making a unique second one, but that still is faithful to the original, but is still original, and that's what I think makes good sequels.
Sure.
Dark Knight.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
perfect
exactly.
example. That it took a core story, a character, a cast, and just expanded the extra lore of this character and kind of gave him more. And once again, Chris Nolan is a perfect example of a director who takes the audience as we are and who are smart individuals. He doesn't baby feed us, spoon feed us any amount of information in this movie. Like The Dark Knight is such a smart type of movie and it's so much fun to watch. I mean, I think we can all agree it's probably one of our favorite movies.
I don't know a single person.
We're like every 20-something-year-old American male that we love that movie is one of our all-time favorite movies.
My mom probably wouldn't like it to be too violent. But that'd be about it.
But there's a reason for that. That movie is very intelligent, is very fun, and I really hope that the Deadpool sequel, knowing almost absolutely nothing about what they're going to do with it, besides Cable. Kind of takes that is let's not do something bigger and better. Let's do what we're already good at and just make another version of that. Essentially,
in a way, to me it's almost a perfect trilogy. It's pretty close. I really like Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Chris Nolan just did such a great job. If somebody's listening and you haven't seen all three of those movies,
shame on you.
Yeah. Wow.
I would say my favorite trilogy, just as kind of a point on that, is going to be Clash of the Titans, and then the one with Denzel Washington.
So you brought up a good point about Christopher Nolan.
What?
And actually,
go ahead.
Cole and I were discussing this earlier today. Is Christopher Nolan? He has complete say in all of his movies.
Right. We were talking about advertisement.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things that ruin movies that could be great is
the marketing campaign.
Yeah, when you have studio take over and they're like, no, we want this because it's our money. That's when vision is destroyed. From
Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Oh, perfect example. We need to talk about that. And I have a lot to say about that movie. But no, you bring up a good point.
Write that down so you can bring it up.
Write it down. Yeah. We're recording it, so it's fine.
Okay.
But you're right. Directors hardly ever have a hand in the marketing campaign of a movie. It's done by an entirely separate team of people that's then approved by executives. So, but Deadpool, though, because it was a much smaller production, Ryan Reynolds was very involved, Tim Miller was very involved, and the viral campaign of this movie was so good. They made so many TV spots and commercials and YouTube videos.
Internet especially, they took advantage.
Yeah, they really took advantage of the type of people that would be interested in this movie and just ran with it. And the movie was so smart. But if anyone here remembers, does anyone here remember the very first Avengers trailer? The one that had that, like, rock music over on top of it. It was like, we are here together now.
I don't remember that.
It was the very first, like, trailer for the first Avengers movie, and it got, like, bashed really hard because everyone's like, all right, the type of people that are already, like, the executives are like, what do 20-something-year-old males really like? Rock music and superheroes. So we're going to put them together. And then Josh Whedon comes out. He's like, yeah, I had no say in this. This is the worst trailer I've ever seen in my life. Because they're just like, what does 20-something-year-old guys want? They want hard rockin' music over footage. It was awful. It was so bad. And then the second trailer came out. It was much better. So
it's like screw the content. Let's go for demographics.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're generalizing information. But Deadpool was very smart about it, and I think that going into the next one,
Star Trek Beyond.
We were talking about that as well. Yeah. That he's not Joe's not really a big fan of that first trailer. He thinks it's too 20-something-year-old male centric.
Yeah, it really is.
Let's just put some Beastie Boys on there, show lots of action scenes, and bam, there's a Star Trek trailer. So it's really nothing about Star Trek.
This is almost a perfect lead into our next topic then, because Star Trek is a very visually centric kind of movie.
Sure.
And we kind of mentioned this about the visuals of Deadpool a little bit too, that we recently got an interview from an individual talking about the Academy Awards, and he was just talking in general about the different types of categories that they make. So his name is Roger Deakins. He's worked on such movies as Shawshank Redemption, No Country for Old Men,
great
Skyfall, movie. A Beautiful Mind. So some really great movies that he was in charge of the cinematography on. He brought up a point that should movies that have animation, whether it just be animation movies or heavy post-production movies, be in a separate visual category than movies that don't.
Kind of like movies that are shot completely green screen and do all their post-production.
I mean, there's so many great movies in both categories. Mad Max, the most recent one, is a very good example of a movie that was very, very practical effect centric. Yeah. It had visual effects.
And the new Star Wars.
In the new Star Wars, yeah, exactly. But there was obviously Star Wars had tons of visual effects, but Mad Max had very minimum amount of visual effects.
They built those cars. They filmed it in the desert.
They wrecked the cars, exactly that. So should there be separate categories and separate awards given out for these different types of visual styles? Animation films is another perfect example of something that maybe should be considered entirely different, as to say. Joe, I know you had a lot to say about this.
So I think, yes. I have a.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next one.
Well, I have an art school background, so I actually do have a lot of friends that are currently in the visual.
Can you tell people a little bit more about your background?
He was a hippie.
Yeah, I was a hippie. So I do have a bachelor's in fine arts from Savannah College of Art and Design. So a lot of art friends out there that are currently in the movie industry, and a lot of them are in visual effects, and I think there should be separate categories.
Yeah.
The reason why I think that is because it really is completely separate. When you're making stuff, you're filming it right there.
Sure.
Say you do your crash scene in Mad Max, you crash those cars, you build those cars. That's a completely different.
A little closer to the mic, please.
That's a completely different talent than somebody who's also very skilled, but is working on a computer, working with different tools, different software. That's a different skill set than building stuff by hand.
Yeah. I agree. All three of us have very different talents when it comes to the different aspects of making this podcast, but also just different things as well. I'm very much a graphic designer. Led, you're very much an audio guy. Joe, you're very much a a more animation kind of driven type of profession.
Slacker, but yeah, that too.
We're gonna go with that. I was trying to be nice, but they're all kind of in the same boat in a lot of ways. But if I had asked you to do the Photoshop work on an episode, or me do the animation stuff on something, or any of us do any of the audio stuff other than LED, it would be a very different experience because they're all
lots of Googling.
All the Googling, so I'm gonna
layer mask. What?
I'm gonna ask Jeeves everything. But you're right. I mean, these things are very, very different, and it takes a different type of person to do different aspects of things. So they should be treated differently. You don't want to lump them all into just quote unquote visuals. There's a lot of different aspects that go into this.
Yeah. What do you think, Edwin?
Huh?
I mean, LED.
All right. Please restate the question because I was doing.
Well, it's
some
on that
audio.
piece of paper that is actually right there next to you.
So it should be separate. Yes, actually, yes.
Cool. Moving on.
I do. No, I do agree. So imagine if a movie like 2001 came out now.
Right.
2001. I mean, that was like 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
It was all practical effects. But it is possible to make a movie like that. So if you put in, thousands of man-hours into making a purely practical film, and you have to compete with Avatar,
right?
Okay, those are two completely different skill sets.
Right.
You have basically a competition between the team of on-set, photography people and all that.
Right.
Versus server farms and a giant group of, admittedly, very talented engineers.
Right.
So, at this point, there's so much on both sides that they really should.
Yeah.
Like Star Wars would be excellent for practical effects.
Right.
They really brought back a lot of that, guys in a costume sort of thing, but it looks excellent.
I mean, that's what J.J. Abrams really wanted to go with. I mean, I think we've talked about this on the cast before, that the movie did feel like a very big homage to the original Star Wars movie.
They actually built the Millennium Falcon.
Exactly. I mean, they actually built, things while, the trilogy. And granted, I think the trilogy was at fault because of the type of time frame that the movies came out at, where it was the late 90s, early 2000s, where
Victims
visual
of
effects.
The times.
Yeah, exactly.
Like The Mummy Returns.
Yeah, exactly, like The Mummy Returns. Back to The Mummy Returns. You really hate that movie.
Visual effects things, computer CG.
The Rock as a scorpion, just. If you'll notice when you watch that scene, look at his waist, like a little bit below belly button level.
Sure.
It like jiggles kind of like violently, but you can't really see it because it's off in the shadows. But it's a major glitch.
But that's a perfect example, unfortunately, for what we're talking about is that some movies just go too crazy, and I think the prequels were kind of a bad example of movies that spent too much time thinking we can't do this smart practically, so let's dumb it down effects wise. And unfortunately, we got the mess that was, and I hate everyone that knows me knows that I hate the Clone Wars movie, especially that like conveyor belt scene. that just felt like it was like a British comedy.
You hate it more than Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace had some okay.
I actually kind of like Phantom Menace a little bit. So.
Really?
Out of the prequels, it's my favorite of the prequels, which isn't saying much. That's like saying it's like the best of the worst.
I recently watched both Clone Wars and Phantom Menace, and I wouldn't say Phantom Menace is better than Clone Wars.
Oh, that's undeniably accurate. So.
You sad children.
You hate Phantom Menace?
I don't hate it. I just don't like it as much as I enjoyed Clone Wars.
Oh my God, why are we friends?
So I want to bring up a point about
I'm leaving.
How Hollywood treats the visual effects because they really don't understand it, and I think a great point to be proven is when Life of Pi did win an award. They won an award at the same time that company that did all the visual effects for Life of Pi went under because they spent all this money on this movie that they didn't get any return from the profits of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys had any friends back when that was happening that they
no
put
friends.
Not a
do you
single
remember
one.
the Facebook thing at the time where people were putting just a green profile picture?
I do remember that.
Yeah, those were people who were standing with the visual effects industry for pretty much their mistreatment from Hollywood.
I mean, really, when it comes down to a lot of like the notice when it comes to like productions of movies and TV shows, we know actors, we know producers, we know directors. Almost everybody else is kind of discounted. I mean, out of everyone in this room, all three of us, can any of us name any like head cinematographers that have worked on a movie in the last year.
I can name a few studios, but not cinematographers.
Exactly. These are people that are...
Yeah. These, one.
Who?
Bill Pope.
What did he work on?
The Matrix.
He worked in the last year?
And I think he may have also worked on Pacific Rim.
Okay. I also asked.
In the last year?
In the last year.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, and these are people that make movies happen. I mean, they may not be the directors, they may not be the actors, but these people have a huge hand in these productions of these movies, and they're really kind of be discounted. I know we're not talking about video games right now, but I recently listened to an interview from Greg Miller. I don't know if any of you guys know who Greg Miller is. He used to work for IGN. He was one of their correspondence kind of people.
Kane and Lynchgate?
I don't know who that is. You're not on microphone, so no one can hear you anyways.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Edwin comes over to fix my microphone and then starts talking.
but he recently, I think back in December, won an award for best trending gamer. He was like, a social media kind of gamer. And he gets up on stage, he's like, I want to thank everybody, he does kind of the generic thank you, my parents, my girlfriend, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's
thank
like,
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe.
Or whatever.
Sure. But he's like, the one person I want to thank the most is this person. And he's like, I've never met this person, but she was the visual effects artist on this video game. I want to thank the people that are constantly working to make these things happen, but are not getting the recognition that they deserve. And basically, without this person, this game would not have turned out the way that it did. And this, it's stuff like that I think these people really do deserve recognition.
The people slaving away on a Wacom.
Yeah.
Working countless months of overtime.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of work that goes
to get a deadline done. That's really what it comes down to. They have the biggest push to, we have this movie deadline, you have to get these effects in. And that's where a lot of times you do get bad stuff because it's so pushed.
Yeah, and, that's a studio decision saying you need to do this.
Wolverine Origins, for example.
We never talk about that. Okay, now that Deadpool's out, I never want to hear you say that movie again. But because you did bring up Wolverine, and it's somewhat related to our next topic, we are going to move on to our next topic, which is going to be something that I specifically have a lot of passion about, but we're going to just talk about it as more of a general thing. Is anyone that here is a big fan of DC Comics knows that they recently announced that they're doing a quote-unquote rebirth of the DC universe.
The District of Columbia is doing a rebirth?
Yes, it's doing a rebirth. The District of Columbia, Joe. Oh,
Joe.
God. What a Joe. Wah, wah. But no, so comic books in general are very much known for having reboots. Every couple of years they'll go to a different version of the Earth or a parallel dimension or something bullshit.
Yeah. Sometimes it almost feels like an excuse when they do that. But
Well, exactly. It's gotten very confusing. So what DC is doing is they're not rebooting again because they rebooted the New 52 just a few years ago. So what they're doing is they're doing a rebirth where they're essentially saying all of our comics are going to start back at issue number 1. Everything we've done with the New 52 is counting. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm not done. So it's not that they're restarting or rebooting anything, but they're going to say we're going to slowly transition everything back into a status quo, as to say. So they're going to look at all the comic lines over the last 75 years and say what was good, what was bad, what kind of gives people that classic look at a superhero. Let's get the books back to that classic approach. For anyone that knows me knows I'm a really big Green Lantern fan. Jeff Johns, who's the creative director of all of DC Comics, wrote a rebirth story about 10 years ago where at a time Hal Jordan was dead, the Green Lantern Corps was dead, Kilowog was dead, Guy Gardner was some weird mutant superhero on Earth, and there was one Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner. If you ever picked up a Green Lantern book, it didn't feel like a Green Lantern book. It just felt like confusing mess. So he didn't say, let's start all over. He took all of that, but then brought back the core, brought back Hal Jordan, made the core relevant again, and then just kind of brought everything back to a neutral point, and then started telling really good stories after that. So they're going to be doing that with the entire DC universe. They're going to say everything that's complicated about comics, we're going to get it to a classic look, and then start telling good storytelling from this point going forward.
Isn't that what they were supposed to do with the New 52?
Well,
sort of?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that was the intention of New 52, but how they executed it was just by rebooting an entirely different universe. So this way, it's kind of like a reboot, but it's more like it's like a soft reopening.
Is it a reimagining?
Kind of, yeah. But once again, they're not saying that nothing that's happened the last couple of years didn't happen. They're still saying everything that's happened in the New 52 did happen. We're just going to slowly kind of make things go back to a classic approach.
They're
storytelling.
They're pulling a Daniel Craig Bond, where
Kinda,
Casino Royale
is
much different, and then all of a sudden, you start seeing him, doing his normal Bondisms.
Kinda, yeah.
So shagging women.
Yeah, shagging and drinking.
So I know for me, I'm the big comic book guy in the group, but I also do want to just talk about reboots in general. So you bring up James Bond. What are our thoughts whenever we hear about a studio or a production company or someone, doing a reboot of something, a reimagining, bringing something back to a neutral zero? Is this something that'll piss off the more core fans, or is this a money grab essentially, saying, hey, DC's going to start making movies soon, we should get all these kids to start reading our comics too by starting over?
When I used to really like reimaginings.
Right.
I know we always bring this up, but I guess we're super fans of it. But Christopher Nolan's Batman, I remember when they first started showing that, I was like, this is like a realistic, gritty Batman that I always wanted a version of a superhero movie being, and I thought Batman should be in like Gotham City. So I loved that type of that. But then I thought like it just kept going on, and I saw more reimaginings of stuff. I remember for Spider-Man, when they decided they were coming out with another Spider-Man, I'm like, did they just finish those 3 Spider-Man movies and they're reimagining it already?
Right.
And I was just like, so I guess at this point maybe I'm just cynical, yeah. And I just think that it's an excuse now.
Anytime
they're like,
you hear reboot, you're like, oh, God.
Yeah. I don't even think it's like a director going, I want it to be my version. I think it's like, oh, great, we just need to have the same superheroes with the same villains, the same story, and you know what, it might just be different actors, and, it's...
Yeah.
Well, you brought up Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man is a perfect example. That's something that, we don't have our latest Spider-Man yet, but he will be in the Civil War movie that's coming out in a couple months.
That'll be the third.
The third Spider-Man that we've gotten in 15 years.
Less than that.
Yeah. Well, when did the first Spider-Man movie come out? 2001?
2000.
2000?
No, 2002.
2002, yeah.
And they stopped around 2007 or so?
Something like that, yeah. And then there was a couple years, and then we got The Amazing Spider-Man, which I think the first one came out in 2011, 2012.
So even smaller time span between... Yeah. I'm having a brain fart. The actor who was in the first Spider-Man, he's really famous.
Tobey Maguire.
Thank you. Yeah, Tobey Maguire,
he's not really famous. It's okay.
I know.
Other than Pleasantville, name another Tobey Maguire movie.
Fear and Loathing.
Oh, come on. Don't help him.
I thought he was a decent Spider-Man.
I thought he played a really good Peter Parker.
Yeah.
His Spider-Man was okay.
He played a horrible Venom, though.
Well, first of all, this is another movie we don't talk about in this podcast. We never talk about Spider-Man 3. Ever. You're
looking at me like I'm gonna.
You're gonna do it.
Right.
I know I'm right. So, but no, I mean you're right. I mean Spider-Man is a perfect example of a studio that's, thought that was doing something and then wasn't doing it and was doing it again and wasn't doing it now, and now Sony's making this deal with Marvel to get them involved in the MCU because now they don't know what to do with the character. I don't know. I unfortunately. Everything of at one point or another will be rebooted, will be remade, will be do everything. As much as we all love Star Wars, I will predict in like 30 years, eventually someone's going to remake Episode 1.
Well, it's the age-old tale that, there is nothing unique as far as story plots go anymore.
Everything is just a reboot or a remake of a retelling of a reimagining of Romeo and Juliet or something like that. Mm-hmm. So,
I wonder how a reboot of The Matrix would go.
Better.
Revolutions would definitely be better.
I don't think you can beat the first Matrix. That movie it's just so raw, so
but
good.
I would put money that they would do it one day too.
Yeah.
That
especially because Revolutions kind of didn't end on quite the note that it maintained.
I'm perfectly okay with them doing that as long as Keanu Reeves plays the Merovingian. Because how great would that be?
He doesn't age, so I guess
it'd be perfect. or who was the guy at the end of Revolution, in the white room with all the monitors?
Oh, that's the architect.
The architect, yeah. How funny would that be? He opens up the door and it's Keanu Reeves. He's like, in one universe, I was the one. We're all like, oh my god.
That'd be kind of a mindfuck.
That'd be kind of cool. Well, Matrix is a perfect example of something that every version of the Matrix is a reboot within the Matrix universe in itself anyways.
That's true.
And in comics,
the movies we saw were the 6th reboot.
Exactly. Comics are just as confusing,
Spoiler
too,
alert.
because, it's not. Comics are just as confusing, too, because every time that they make a reboot of something, it's an alternate Earth of something else. Like, the New 52 is Earth 3, while, like, the 90s version was, like, Earth 2, and the classic version is Earth 1, and the Flash TV show does a lot of this right now, where he's actually visiting Earth 2 in the show, where it's like Jay Garrick Flash instead of Barry Allen Flash. But while he's going through the wormhole, they also showed pictures of the 90s Flash show.
Oh, nice.
So they acknowledge that like there's alternate Earths that are also other versions of this character.
They should have tucked in a picture of the guy who's supposed to be Flash in Batman vs.
Ezra
Superman.
Miller?
Yeah.
I'd almost predict that they probably will. Like, once they start filming that movie, I would put money that they would do that. They also showed an image while he's going through
once they start filming Ezra Miller's
Flash?
Ezra Miller's Flash?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be in Batman vs. Superman, which comes out in...
Well, we don't know in what capacity that he's going to be in that movie.
Okay.
We know that
fair enough.
We know that he's going to
be
be a cameo, but for all we know, he's just going to show up with a name tag that says Barry Allen. So... And everyone's going to be like, oh, my God, excellent.
So here's the idea as far as kind of reimagining reboots that I don't think the movie industry has quite capitalized yet on, but it is in books, is the alternate history where you take real historical events, but you put, like, the most popular one is What If the Nazis Had Won?
Right, on the high tower.
Yeah, exactly, and that's been a popular television series. I can't think of any movies that have done anything like that.
Well, I know like Fallout is a prime example of like game-wise.
Mm-hmm.
BioShock Infinite is another really prime example. But yeah, movie-wise, I can't think of... I know a perfect example. Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, not a super historical movie by any means, but that's like the running joke is that movie is the first movie in the Tarantino timeline, and because of how violent the events were of World War II, that's what caused everybody to be hyper violent in every other movie in his franchise, like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. So everybody being super violent in World War II is what made the U.S. super violent for all those other movies.
I can see that.
Watchmen.
Alternate 1985.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think those are great, but there's not many of them. I think a great movie idea would be, what if the South had won the Civil War? You take and then you progress it 100, and then you progress 100 years, and you have that universe.
I love that. I love that. From someone who's from Florida, I love the idea of being a lord.
The South will rise again.
I pull a lever, and the Southern flag just appears behind me. So,
I'm gonna go now.
Moving on to our last news topic before we actually start the debate. We're actually doing pretty good on time today.
Yeah, we are.
I know that Led, you wanted to talk about Quantum Break a little bit, and the fact that they had recently announced that it will be coming out for PC as a co-release from the Xbox One. And I know for me, I've read that some people are actually kind of upset with this, too, because it had been promised all the way up until like a week ago that this was an Xbox One exclusive, and now people are upset that they kind of broke that promise, quote-unquote broke that promise, to make it a PC game. But they've also come out with a lot of cool functions for that cross thing, like it's a cross-buy, so you buy it for one, you get it for both. And also has like cross-game save feature, too, so like you can start playing it on the Xbox and continue to play it on the PlayStation with that same save file. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, even then, a lot of people feel cheated. They were hoping for that one thing they can hold over other people.
That's just fanboyism.
It really is. It's a fanboyism that we don't see a lot, but it's still not good. I mean, you buy a game for one platform and you get it for another. I don't see how that's really a loss.
Well, let me ask you this question, though. It's because it's a franchise that none of us really know and have never obviously played before because it's new. What if they at one point was like, Halo is coming to PlayStation? What would you feel about that? It's a harder question, right?
It's come to the PC, but that's because it's Microsoft.
Right, I mean, that's a Microsoft thing. But let's say, all of a sudden they're like Halo 6, PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4 for the first time.
So I think if Halo becomes a multi-platform, I think that's the official end of console-specific games. I think that would be the
or at least definitely the way out.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be kind of disappointing simply because now, all right, when you have a multi-platform game, I feel like in some ways there are compromises that have to be made.
Sure.
So, all right, now how is this going to be affected? Are we going to get
exclusives and things
maybe
like
not
that?
Quite as good as it could have been?
Sure.
And then also being an Xbox fan, it might be like, oh man, they lost another IP.
Right.
But then again, that's good for PlayStation users who maybe have never played Halo, and they'll pop that disc in and be like, dude, this universe is crazy.
Might even convince them to then get Xboxes at that point too to play the previous iterations or something like that.
Or at least follow the mythos and read the books and really make it something that's at the Star Wars level instead of.
Yeah, hopefully the amount of people that they gain if they ever made a decision like that, which I don't ever see actually happening. No, it's never going to happen. But hopefully the amount of people that they gain offsets the amount of people they'll lose from being fanboys and stuff like that. But, I mean, I think this is a good thing. I mean, I can understand why someone might be upset that Quantum Break is coming to PC, but it's not like it's just a port. Like, they are doing cross-buy, cross-save, all this really cool functionality that this isn't just a money grab. This is just the generation of technology moving forward. Eventually, every game should be this anyways. Every game should at one point should say, if I buy something on my PC, I should be able to play it on my home console and transition save files. Imagine what if every game was like that.
We wouldn't have the Elite Dangerous conversation.
Exactly. We would never have to worry about it. I'd buy it on Steam, and now I can play it on my TV.
How great would that be? Because I have a lot of friends that, I unfortunately don't have a PlayStation 4 yet.
Right.
But I have friends who have that, and I'm like, I would love to play some video games with them. They have Destiny,
Yeah. It's why
I would love to be able to play cross-platform multiplayer games.
Cross-platform would be amazing. Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I'd love that.
I know that PlayStation and Xbox are obviously very two sides of the same coin. I know that we'll probably get other iterations of these consoles probably in the next 10 years or something like that. But I'd almost predict probably soon. It's probably like 5 years.
Yeah.
I'd almost predict that eventually, and this is like. This is like a 30% prediction because I don't think that it'll ever happen, but I really hope that it does. That maybe one day we'll get a single console that does everything.
I don't know. It's not really.
Well,
good
I'm not saying Microsoft or Sony makes it. I'm saying that they have an agreement with one conglomerate company. It's not a word that conglomerate company.
That sounds like a problem you have if you have.
But basically they make a company that's a joint effort between the two of them to bring. Maybe not every title.
That's what the Steam console is. It's made by a whole bunch of different companies.
Ouya was supposed to be kind of something like that as well. You have the Steam machines. So I think that those things are in the works. It just, unfortunately, when you have Sony and Microsoft on those two ends of the spectrum, for them to play nice is what's going to be the hardest part of this.
Yeah. I do also want to point out here that anybody who's been following the news as far as the way Microsoft has approached Xbox on Windows 10, keep in mind that Microsoft is starting to see Xbox and PC as more overlapping.
Yeah.
There's starting to be less of a divide there. So, the Xbox app on Windows 10, I can sign on.
You're right.
I can play my Xbox through my computer.
Yeah.
I can voice chat through my computer, send you guys messages.
Right.
They're trying to really blur those lines, which is smart because they have such a pull in the PC world.
I mean, you know me. I'm a really big Microsoft fanboy in general, but you're right. I mean, the Xbox One, OneDrive. There's so many aspects that Microsoft is trying to make unified, and it very much is kind of like an Apple approach in a lot of ways too. And I'm not saying that Apple's not the first person to do it, but they're probably the best company to do it.
Sure.
Where they make all of their devices, all of their updates, all of their UI, all of their content perfectly unified between all of their devices. And I think Microsoft is trying to take that similar approach because they have more devices than Apple does. They have game consoles, they have television devices, they have PCs, they have laptops, they have tablets, phones, things like that. That I think that if Microsoft could do it right, and somehow make it making all of their exclusive games Like, imagine if Halo 6 I could play on my PC and on my Xbox.
In some ways you can.
With Oculus
Rift. In some ways
support.
you can, but with Oculus Rift, yeah. In some ways, you're right. Some ways you can. I can stream content from my Xbox to my PC, but I have to have my Xbox on in order to do this.
Correct.
I'm talking an independent PC version of Halo 6, but I can stop playing that mission and then continue to play that mission on my Xbox.
Like your girlfriend wants to watch something on TV.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Or like the Wii U does that too, kind of, but we're not going to talk about it. So moving on to the last and final thing that we do at the
debate time.
Debate.
All right, Joe.
It's all about that base.
All right, hang on. Let's stop this here. Joe, when you do stuff like that, the last time I had to... What? Don't do that.
Thank you. Better. All right, so we are going to be moving on to the debate today, which is a debate that I picked that I'm very, very especially excited about. So the 2016 Toy Fair was this week. So they announced all the new toy lines, all the new stuff. For anyone that knows me, I'm a bit of a toy collector. Just all the women love it. So, but the one thing that
it's not toys, it's a collection.
Thank you, Joe. You get it.
Collectibles.
You guys are the best. Anyways, the debate topic that we're going to have today is what is the best childhood toy? Now, I did ask to clarify this question when we were picking it, so we're going to pick toys that are from the 90s, because we're all 90s kids. And what is
1890s?
Yeah, 1890s. Yeah, you're hoop and stick. Oh, you picked hoop and stick? I also picked hoop and stick. Yeah,
that was the only toy back then. Sorry.
So the best 1990s toys, and why is, and then the debate will be why is your toy better than the other person's toy? By random picking, for the sake of everything, I'm going to allow Joe the first 3 minutes.
Come on, I always go first.
You never go first.
I went first last time.
Fine. Led, you're going to go first because Joe's a little bitch.
3 minutes? Are you going to time it?
I'm gonna look. There's a clock right there.
I don't trust that clock.
Start whenever you want.
10 All right, I have some things written down.
All right. Oh, wow. Super prepared.
Somebody give me a piece of paper.
You're not going to write it right now. You've had a week. Start right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. I just wanted to talk about how I believe that the greatest 90s toy of all time, my favorite, is the Super Nintendo. It does count.
I knew it.
It was released August 23rd of 1991.
Wow.
Discontinued. Get this. Discontinued in 1999.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Yeah. I thought it was like 95, 96, like just before that. 64.
It was probably around that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to give a few stats. So it was the best-selling console of that era. I'm sure all of us have excellent memories of having lots of fun on a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
They added X and Y buttons, which have crossed generations. It was in the Dreamcast, Xbox. X and Y is everywhere. It's ubiquitous now. Of course, the PlayStation has like geometry happening, but they also had really good sound and graphics for the time. It was rather impressive, especially coming from the NES. It was definitely a technological upgrade. They accidentally created PlayStation. Because remember, the CD add-on was supposed to be for the Super Nintendo. And the deal with Sony and Nintendo fell through. Nintendo ended up trying to work with Philips. That didn't quite work, and Sony got pissed and made PlayStation. They had Game Boy support, where there was a cartridge you could put in your Super Nintendo and put a Game Boy cartridge in there and play Game Boy games on your TV. That's forward-thinking stuff right there, my friend. The games are high quality. They're still emulated to this day in web browsers on your PSP or Vita or whatever it is. So
no one plays the Vita.
Whatever. The games are still sought after. It's not. This is not a console that was forgotten about. Oh yeah. Some of the great games that came to this excellent childhood toy. Oh, by the way, consoles were thought of more as toys.
That's why I allowed this. That's why I allowed it, because it was a different time frame when they weren't considered entertainment. It was considered a child's toy.
You weren't watching VHS tapes on your... Yeah, it was a child's toy. Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2, Super Mario World, Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, and NBA Jam, all classics. Of course, there was a Mario Kart game. There was other stuff. there was definitely other stuff.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this the first console to ever have a different generation, so you could play stuff from the original one onto this one as well?
No, that was actually planned. They did not do that. I think the first one was like Wii that really did that. So, yeah, Super Nintendo.
All right, man. That's a very well thought out argument. I felt like I was hearing you give me a...
Edwin, thank you for that Wikipedia page on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a grade at the end of this for your 4th grade science homework, but thank you.
So my topic is drastically different because I actually picked a toy. So
shots fired.
I picked the Super Soaker.
Ooh.
Every kid had a Super Soaker.
Is the Super Soaker from the 90s?
It may be a little before, but it was hell of a popular thing in the 90s.
Is he good on time?
Yeah, he's good. You're good. Yeah.
So, the Super Soaker was the children's equivalent of an arms race. So, you know what I'm talking about, too, because it started off with that one kid in the playground, a hot summer day, someone would be like, oh, well, we could have a water gun fight. And, you come out there, a lot of kids, they just got their little handgun, pistol, Dollar Tree water guns. Then you'd see this kid come out, it's got this thing that's got, like, all these valves, it's got, like, these circular chambers that hold water, and, this thing can get, like, 10 PSI and all that, and he just blows everybody out of the water. And that's when it started. When you were a kid, you're like, Mom, Dad, I need a Super Soaker. And it would just go from there and go up versus be the pump until kids have, like, backpack Super Soaker looking like they're from Ghostbusters. You know what I'm talking about, right? And, it was just hell of a lot of fun back then. It's, I would still get in Super Soaker fights if I could, and... It was a great toy. Help kids, help the military. You want somebody who can point and shoot, so promoted that.
I think that's a little bit of a stretch there, buddy.
Oh, but
the best argument.
And then there would be those kids. Normally, the older ones, you'd have like your older sibling or something like, "Oh, I'm not gonna get wet." You know what? You pump them full in the face with some water from your Super Soaker.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it was a great toy. As far as beating the Super Nintendo, just take my Super Soaker and shoot it right at your Super Nintendo, and there goes your $300 toy.
Oh, my God. You got another minute.
All right, so there was just so many different types of Super Soakers, too, so that's another reason why it's great. You had everything from the little handgun. You had giant Super Soakers. You had Nerf guns, too, but I feel like Super Soaker was even better than Nerf guns because you had a real impact. Nerf gun, you just get hit by a little foam dart. Super Soaker, you're getting wet, which on a hot day, bonus. But if it's a cold day, that could be a penalty. Like, don't get shot because you're going to get cold. Sure. And, there was just so much stuff. You could have entire, neighborhood spawning battles, running through people's yards. Now, I feel like every kid in America had this experience. And while the Super Nintendo is a great toy, I think it was limited to. I remember growing up, not everybody had a Super Nintendo. You had to go over to the other friend's house to play a Super Nintendo. Everybody had a Super Soaker.
Got like
and
20 seconds.
That is my closing argument.
All right, no, that is very good. So in typical fashion, you each will get a minute of a rebuttal.
I think I already did my rebuttal.
You kind of already did, but you'll still get a minute. So we're gonna start with Led, and you get your minute starting whenever you're ready.
He wrote stuff down over there.
Well, you should have written stuff down. Go.
Prepare to get rebutted, right in the face,
right in the butt.
All right, so. I'd like to counter with the fact that the Super Nintendo truly is a year-round toy, okay? The Super Soaker was not very popular in Canada, I would imagine, okay? Let's just put that out there first. In addition, people are still not getting into eBay fights over Super Soakers, but they will eBay fight over Super Nintendo. They will fight to the death over Super Nintendo.
And I don't know about that. There's some Super Nintendo.
All right. Now, the Super Nintendo gave the possibility to tell stories. Zelda. All right. Final Fantasy games were on the Super Nintendo. I believe like 5 or something like that.
So does a book.
The Super Soaker does not give you the ability to tell stories. Super Nintendo had more life, and not everybody had a Super Soaker.
All right, you're done. Good rebuttal, Joe. Start whenever you want.
I think you're absolutely wrong when saying that a Super Soaker does not let you tell stories. I think it's the opposite. Those fights that you have with Super Soaker, those are stories that you would tell around the playground for days.
Tell us one.
You remember little punk kid Edwin?
Tell us a real one.
I don't remember him.
Who had that giant Super Soaker, and he just blasted everybody in the face, and you were diving to the ground, and, it would shoot streams of water in 5 different directions. That thing was awesome. That story's right there. And my rebuttal, first off, the Super Nintendo, that is not a children's toy. Any children's toy that costs hundreds of dollars is not accessible to your average consumer, especially a lot of parents, 90s. It wasn't the best time for the economy.
How much was a Super Soaker Gatling gun?
So that's when it was the arms race. So if you wanted to be the United States or the Russia of the Super Soaker, that was it. Super Soaker for the win. Super Soaker Nation.
Oh, man. Oh, God, this is...
Super Soaker Nation.
Super Soaker Nation. This is a really hard argument, too, because I support the Nintendo being the console that everybody should have had.
I had a feeling he was going to pick either the Super Nintendo or the Game Boy.
It's an obvious one, yeah.
Was gonna come up.
But, I mean, I didn't actually own a Super Nintendo as a kid. I was a Sega. I was one of the guys that had, Sega consoles. But I do remember playing, Mario games and all this kind of stuff on it.
Did you have a Super Soaker?
I did have a Super Soaker.
I actually had a Dollar Tree one.
Yeah. But at the same time, Joe also brings up a really good point that you make your own stories and your own memories with stuff like that, as opposed to video games, which are telling you how to play a story. You're just interacting with it.
Well, the video game is art. Can be art.
Can be art. But we're not.
Some kids would shoot up other kids with their Super Soaker.
That's art. but that's that's not. That's a really weird comment to make. Yeah, I'm so glad the debate's over because I would have taken away points for that comment. But it's a really hard choice because I support both of what you're saying, and I had mentioned this when we first got started. Was that you both pick things that are so opposite each other? This could almost be an entirely different conversation.
I almost picked the Tamagotchi.
Why didn't you pick Tamagotchi?
Because Super Soakers were better. So.
More people had Super Soakers than Tamagotchis.
Probably.
And Tamagotchis was a phase that lasted max 2 years.
Yeah. What was the other one you might have picked if not Super Nintendo?
Nothing. I went all in.
I could tell by the research.
I believe this, man.
It literally sounded like you just read off.
People can't see us right now, but he has a notepad full of information right now. But Joe just goes half-cocked into conversations.
Full cocked into conversations.
Whoa.
All the cocked. It is a really, really hard choice. And I think I'm going to have to give the win to the Super Nintendo. He finally wins one. And I will say this, the Super Soaker, you're right. It's a wonderful toy, and everyone have it. But he brought up a really good point that it is a seasonal toy, while the game console you can play year-round.
I do love the Super Nintendo.
See, yeah, you almost can't argue against it because we all love the Super Nintendo.
I just wouldn't call it a toy.
I mentioned this when you told me about it this morning that I almost had a moment where I was like, should I allow it? But that he brings up the point that in the 90s, video games were not considered entertainment systems. They were children's toys.
Well, we do have the Toy Museum Hall of Fame
and it is
in Rochester,
there.
and the Super Nintendo
is there. Yeah. As well as the Super Soaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they have a ranking? Which one's ranked higher?
I don't think they did.
No, it's just different years.
That would have really helped with this. But no, I mean, it was a really good argument, really fun, but I'm going to have to give it to the Super Nintendo. Sorry, buddy.
You suck.
Just suck at Trebek.
All right, what
punishment? I don't think we're going to do punishments anymore.
Okay, yeah,
we can't come up with punishments. We're not mean to each other. So, but Joe,
your punishment.
I get to tickle you.
And we're going to record it and put it up too. I will point out that Joe still owes me dollar menu food from last week.
Man, I can't afford that. I make that much
in a
day.
Breakfast this morning.
With money I stole.
That's his budget for the month, all right.
We stopped and got food on our way here. But yeah, guys, I mean, this has been our weekly episode. This is episode 4. I don't think we've really come up with a title for this episode yet.
Yeah, so I imagine what's going to happen is with the flow of the conversation, we'll come up with a title afterward. So that'll just happen naturally.
Sure.
But we are going to put up another video of us checking out the new iDarb update. If you guys haven't tried this, it is for Xbox One. We can maybe do a Rocket League one too, because that's.
I actually would like to do that. So what we're going to start doing, guys, is we're going to start posting our main podcast, which is what you guys are listening to every weekend, and then on Wednesdays, I believe is the date that we agreed on.
Let's keep it fluid for right now.
We're going to post it later in the week, in the midweek. We're going to post us actually playing video games, and we're going to try and mix it up and do different downloadable games and different new release games, and just kind of have additional conversations about this going on. So keep an eye out for that. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on SoundCloud. Follow us on Instagram to keep up to date with all the newest content that's coming out of us. We're actually going to be expanding out and putting out tons of new content as we start to become a bigger quote-unquote
thing.
Me and Joe talked about we were really excited to get a unpaid hot intern in here eventually.
That's our goal one day.
Yeah, who only intern. I can have sex with. So. But all right.
Now we're never going to get an intern because you said that.
Ouch. But thank you guys for listening. Be sure to check us out, and we'll talk to you guys soon. So thank you guys. This is Colton. This is Joe. And this is and see you guys.
See ya.
Bye.